Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. This time I'll show you how to create a database from scratch using SQL script on SQL Server Management Studio. Before we start, it's important to mention that the first step in creating a database from scratch is to collect business requirements and design the database using an entity relationship diagram. However, this will be a topic for another video. For now, let's assume we need to build a database for a school to store information about students. We'll focus on creating the database, one schema, and the students table. Use Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio to connect to your database instance. And then open a new query window. To create database objects using SQL, we have to use the create statement. For a database object, its syntax is very simple. Just type in create, then the type of the object, which is database, and then your database names. In my case, School Manager. End the instruction with a semicolon, add a new line, and type in Go. Go is not a keyword, but a batch separator. We'll be using this to separate the different instructions we'll write today. Usually, after a database is created, we would want to use it. For this, type in use, then the database name, in this case, School Manager. End with a semicolon, a new line, and go. Next, we need to create schemas to contain our tables. Think of a schema as a category. In managing a school, we have different components: people, academics, financials, just to name a few. Since students are part of the people category, let's create a schema with this name to reflect this fact. This time, type in create, schema, then the schema name, which is people. End with a semicolon, again a new line, and go. Now that we have our schema, we can create tables in it. For tables, the syntax changes a little bit, since we have to specify columns and other constraints they might have. Type in create, table, and then the table name including the schema that it belongs to, separated by a dot. In this case, people.students. Open close parentheses, and enter a new line in between them. Here, I'll specify each column of my table, separating them with a comma. Start by typing in the column name, followed by the data type, indicate whether or not you want the column to accept null values, and any constraints that it might have. In this example, I'll use some common data types for my columns. The first column to add is usually a number that will be used as an ID, and that will be incremented automatically by SQL Server. To do that, enter the name of this column, student ID, of data type int, not accepting null values. Since this is the ID to identify a record in this table, make it a primary key. And because we want to make sure it's automatically incremented with every new record, add identity 1,1. Finish it with a comma, and enter a new line. The next two columns will be first name and last name, and we'll use a data type named NVARCHAR. Columns of this data type can store textual information in Unicode, which is good for supporting characters in different languages such as French or Spanish. Type in first name of data type NVARCHAR with a length of 300 characters not accepting null values, comma, and a new line. Then last name of data type NVARCHAR, length 300 characters, not accepting null values, comma, and a new line. The last three columns will be birth date, registration date time, and a flag to mark the student as active or inactive. For the first one, enter birth date of data type date, which in this case will store only the day, month, and year, not accepting null values, comma, and a new line. Then registration date time of data type date time, and this one will store day, month, and year as well as hours and minutes, not accepting null values, comma, and a new line. Lastly, my flag column, which is active, of data type bit. Now, bit will store only one of two values, a 0 if my student is inactive, or a 1 if my student is active. Add not null. And because this is the last column of my table, don't use the comma. Move the cursor after the last parenthesis, end the instruction with a semicolon, type in a new line, and a go separator. Now run the script to create your database objects. Click on the execute button at the top. The results of the execution will appear in the messages window. To verify that your objects were created successfully, right-click on the database folder icon on the left-hand side tree view and select refresh. Expand the databases node and you will find your newly created database. And inside of it, in the tables folder, your newly created table. Well, that will be all for now. I hope you found this video useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you next time.